On the same weekend that Warner Brothers found out they have yet another DC flop on their hands with Blue Beetle, the worst opening in DCEU box office history, they also finally closed the sad chapter of yet another DC failure in The Flash. The Flash was a complete and unmitigated disaster. It ends its box office run at $268 million worldwide. Depending on what the marketing budget was for this thing, somewhere between $100 and $150 million, they would have lost less money if they didn't even market it and just shelved it. That's how bad this was. It already looks like it might be one of the worst flops in Warner Brothers history, but now we're getting new details that it's even worse than everyone thought. Just as so many of us expected when they started first putting that budget out there of $200 to $220 million for the Flash production budget. People didn't believe that, quite frankly, because we knew how many reshoots were done. We knew the work that was put into this, so many different rounds of rewrites and reshoots, all this shit. That number just didn't make sense to a lot of people. It was hinted by insiders that it was over $300 million. And now what do you know? Several months after Warner Brothers initially told us what their budget was, we're getting some real numbers, and it looks bad for them. The Flash's budget was reportedly closer to $300 million. We are seeing this time after time in the entertainment industry right now, specifically now when we're in the middle of all these different flops, all these massive inflated budgets, and they're trying to disguise how much they really cost so it doesn't look that bad for them. We saw recently with Disney when it came to Marvel and the Multiverse of Madness. They told us Doctor Strange 2 only cost $200 million. That was the production budget. Until they had to officially file the paperwork in the UK. And oh, as it turns out, it cost them $350 million to make that movie, and they got about a $50 million tax credit, bringing the total down to $300 million. These studios are consistently lying about these budgets, and it looks like The Flash got caught doing exactly the same thing. This is from a report from Hollywood Reporter, going over a bunch of the different failures or flops or some success stories of the summer. But now, with that in perspective, when you look at The Flash, when you look at a movie that James Gunn did have some creative control over in terms of the editing, the ending, what they were going to do with it moving forward, and he also had some say in how they marketed this movie. What does this mean? He hasn't even made his first movie for the new DCU, but already you have all this negative shit surrounding it. And when it comes to The Flash, with this box office result, it ends its box office run at less than $270 million. When you break down these numbers based on what the studio gets to keep, around 55% of the domestic, about 40% of the international numbers go to the studios. You're talking about a movie that barely cracked $120, $125 million that the studio actually saw from this. But they have at least $300 million in production budget and somewhere between $100 and $150 million invested when it comes to that marketing campaign. You're talking about a loss of $300 million for The Flash. I mean, when it's all said and done, the only thing that might lose more than it this year is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Both these things could end up being $300 million bombs for Disney and Warner Brothers respectively. But it seems like when it comes to DC, Warner Brothers just can't catch a break. Obviously, they're lucky they had Barbie going as massive as it did, but even the success of Barbie, that's the crazy part. The success of Barbie, if this thing hits, say, $1.5 billion, the profits from Barbie are not going to outweigh the losses that you have from the multiple DC movies that have been released this year. Just in the past year, Black Adam was released near the end of last year. Then you had Shazam 2, then The Flash, now Blue Beetle, and of course, Aquaman is yet to come. Who knows how much money that's going to lose? But it looks like The Flash is even in worse financial shape than any of us could expected. What a complete disaster for James Gunn, DC, and for Warner Brothers. Let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments section below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later.